Maria was a hard worker. She toiled tirelessly, day in and day out, under the scorching sun and the pouring rain. Her hands were calloused, her back often aching, but she never complained. Day and night, she provided for her family. Whether it was mending fishing nets by the dim light of a lantern or harvesting crops under the blazing sun, Maria's dedication knew no bounds. Life was difficult, but she persevered. Each day brought new challenges, yet Maria faced them with unwavering resolve. Her spirit was unbreakable, even when her body was weary. Maria was determined to give her children a better life. She dreamed of opportunities for them that she never had, of education and a future free from the struggles she endured. She grew up in a small village where everyone knew each other and life moved at a slower pace. The community was tight-knit, and neighbors often helped one another. The air was thick with humidity, making every task more exhausting. The lush vegetation that surrounded the village was both a blessing and a challenge, providing resources but also demanding constant labor. The scent of salt water hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the sea's proximity. The ocean was both a source of sustenance and a symbol of the hardships they faced. It was a simple life, but it was home. The modest houses, the familiar faces, and the shared struggles created a sense of belonging that Maria cherished deeply. Maria dreamed of a brighter future. She often found herself gazing out the window, lost in thoughts of what could be, imagining a life where her children could thrive without the constant worry of survival. She yearned for a life beyond the rice paddies and fishing boats. The endless horizon seemed to call to her, promising possibilities that lay just out of reach. She knew she had to be resourceful. Every day was a test of her ingenuity, finding ways to stretch their meager resources and make the most of what they had. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for her family. Her strength was the foundation upon which their hopes and dreams were built. Her husband, a fisherman, worked hard to provide. He spent long hours at sea, battling the elements and the uncertainty of each day's catch, but their combined efforts were barely enough. Despite their relentless work, the weight of their struggles often felt overwhelming, and the fear of not making ends meet was a constant shadow. The specter of poverty loomed large. It was a relentless presence, threatening to undo all their hard work and determination. Maria knew she had to find a way to ease their burden. She spent countless nights thinking, planning, and hoping for a solution that would lift her family out of their struggles and into a brighter future. The opportunity arose unexpectedly. A wealthy family sought a caretaker. They offered a generous salary. It was a chance to escape poverty. Maria was torn. Leaving her family was unthinkable, but the money would change their lives. It was a gamble she had to take. With a heavy heart, she said goodbye. Her children clung to her, tears streaming down their faces. It was a promise etched in sorrow. She would return. She would make them proud. The journey was long and arduous. Maria traveled far from her humble village. The city lights promised hope and opportunity, yet a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. The mansion stood on a hill overlooking the city. Its walls were tall and imposing. The windows, dark and vacant, stared back like empty eyes. Maria was greeted by the family lawyer. His face was gaunt, his eyes filled with a strange sadness. He explained the situation. The family patriarch was gravely ill. He required constant care. The old man's room was dark and silent. The air was heavy with the scent of sickness and decay. Maria approached the bed cautiously. The old man's face was pale and gaunt. His eyes, though clouded with age, seemed to follow her every move. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. There was something unsettling about the old man. Weeks turned into months, and the days seemed to blur together. Maria cared for the old man diligently, her dedication unwavering. She bathed him, fed him, and changed his linens with meticulous care. But despite her efforts, he never spoke a word. He just stared at her with those unsettling eyes, eyes that seemed to pierce through her soul. One night, the old man's condition took a turn for the worse. He thrashed about in his bed, his breath coming in ragged gasps, each one more desperate than the last. Maria tried to restrain him, her hands trembling as she fought to keep him still, but he was too strong, his strength surprising for someone so frail. In his delirium, the old man bit her, his teeth sinking into her flesh with a ferocity she had never imagined. His teeth sank into her arm, drawing blood, the pain sharp and immediate. The pain was sharp and immediate, a searing sensation that shot through her arm. Maria cried out in surprise and pain, her voice echoing through the quiet room. She pushed him away with all her might, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. The old man lay still, his eyes closed, as if the struggle had drained the last of his energy. Maria stared at her wound, the blood welling up from the bite, her mind racing with confusion and fear. A strange feeling washed over her, a sensation she couldn't quite place. It was a primal urge, a hunger she couldn't explain, a deep gnawing need that seemed to come from the very core of her being. She looked at the old man with a mix of fear and curiosity, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Clutching her arm, she watched the blood drip slowly, each drop a reminder of the inexplicable change she felt within. Standing in the dimly lit room, shadows playing on her face, Maria felt a transformation beginning, one that she couldn't understand but couldn't deny. With a determined look, she resolved to uncover the truth behind this strange new hunger, no matter where it led her. As she walked down the dark hallway, her silhouette fading into the distance, Maria knew her life would never be the same again. The old man died a few days later. Maria was relieved. She had been caring for him for months, watching him slowly fade away. His passing, though sad, felt like a release from the constant worry and stress. But her relief was short-lived. The peace she had hoped for was quickly overshadowed by a new, unsettling feeling. The hunger she had felt after the bite lingered. It was a strange, gnawing sensation that she couldn't quite understand. It gnawed at her insides, growing stronger each day. No matter what she ate, the hunger remained, a constant, painful reminder. At first, she tried to ignore it. She thought it was just stress or grief. She threw herself into her work, hoping to distract herself. She worked late into the night, her fingers flying over the keyboard, her mind focused on anything but the hunger. But the hunger persisted. It whispered to her in the dead of night, urging her to feed. The voice was soft at first, but it grew louder and more insistent. Maria began to crave meat, raw, bloody meat. The thought of it made her mouth water even as it filled her with dread. The thought both horrified and excited her. She had never felt such a primal urge before, and it scared her. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help herself. The hunger was too strong, too overpowering. The hunger was too strong. It consumed her thoughts, leaving little room for anything else. One night she could resist no longer. The hunger had reached a fever pitch, and she knew she had to do something about it. She snuck into the kitchen and grabbed a piece of raw meat from the pantry. Her hands trembled as she held it, the smell intoxicating. She devoured it ravenously, her hunger insatiable. The taste was both repulsive and delicious, and she couldn't stop herself from eating more. Guilt and shame washed over Maria. What had she become? She had succumbed to a dark and terrible urge. She was a monster. But the hunger wouldn't be denied. It returned with a vengeance, stronger than before. Maria knew she couldn't keep it a secret forever. She tried to leave. She packed her bags and prepared to return home. But as she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror, she was horrified. Her eyes were bloodshot, her teeth sharpened. The transformation had begun. Maria collapsed to the floor, her body racked with sobs. She was trapped. The curse had taken hold. She was no longer the woman she once was. She was something else, something monstrous. The hunger consumed Maria. It twisted her thoughts, her desires. She couldn't fight it anymore. She had to feed. One fateful night she returned home. Her children, overjoyed to see their mother, rushed into her arms. They didn't notice the glint in her eyes. They didn't smell the blood on her breath. Maria led her children inside. Her husband, away at sea, was none the wiser. He believed his family to be safe. He would never see them alive again. The details of that night are too gruesome to recount. Maria, driven by an insatiable hunger, took the lives of her own flesh and blood. The house, once filled with laughter and love, echoed with the screams of the innocent. Section 8. The Return. When her husband returned from sea, he was greeted by an eerie silence. The door creaked open, revealing a scene of unimaginable horror. Blood stained the walls, the furniture overturned. His children, his beloved children, were gone.